Hello and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today we are in Jerusalem in front of the bronze menorah, and we are going to understand what the connection of this candelabrum is with the fulfillment of biblical prophecies, more specifically of Ezekiel 37. So if you are ready, let's get started. Bronze menorah, it is located today in front of the Knesset, the Parliament of Israel, which we can see here behind me. But the story of the menorah does not start here. It starts over 3,000 years ago at the foot of Mount Sinai. When God orders the construction of the tabernacle and all the utensils, He also orders the construction of a 7-branched gold candelabrum. But as you can see, this menorah is not gold, but we still understand today why. But the original menorah that was built in gold according to God's instructions, it stayed inside the tabernacle for centuries and centuries. Then it was inside the first temple of Jerusalem, which is Solomon's temple, and also inside the second temple of Jerusalem. It illuminated the temple and the sanctuary. It was the symbol and the heart of the people of Israel. But everything will change in the year 66 after Christ, when the Jews, tired of Roman oppression, decide to declare a great rebellion. But unfortunately, they will lose this rebellion, and the Romans will destroy all of Israel from north to south, and will also destroy the temple of Jerusalem. And when they enter the temple and see it filled with utensils, with expensive materials like gold, they steal these utensils and take them to Rome. We have proof of this, in addition to all the historical books, in the very Arch of Titus, which was built in the year 81 after Christ. This arch celebrates the destruction of Israel, and that's why it's called the Arch of Titus. Titus was the Roman general who destroyed most of Israel, including the Temple of Jerusalem. They were proud of the end they brought to Israel, and so if we look inside the arch, even to this day, the arch that is in Rome, we can see the Roman soldiers looting the temple objects, among them the menorah. The theft of the menorah marks the end of the people of Israel, of the golden times, of the biblical times. And the people will then be sent to the diaspora, will be sent to the four corners of the world. And not only that, the Romans do to celebrate the end of Israel, they will create a coin called Judea Capta. Judea was captured. On it we can see a date palm, and at the foot of this date palm, a Jewish woman crying, and a Roman soldier standing proud of everything he is doing. Remember this coin well, because with it we will finish our prophecy for today. But then the menorah is taken to Rome and it disappears. We don't know today where it is and if it still exists. So, what does this menorah do here? If the menorah of the Arch of Titus marks the end of Israel, this menorah marks the rebirth of Israel. After nearly 2,000 years, it starts with Edwin Samuel, a Brit who, a year and a half after Israel's declaration of independence, he wants to give a gift on behalf of the British government to Israel, but he wants something that has meaning. And so he chooses Benno Elkan, a German Jewish artist who managed to survive Nazi Germany by fleeing from Germany to England. And there he becomes a very, very, very famous artist, but maintaining his Jewish roots. And when he is given the mission to build the symbol that will be the gift from the British government to the government of Israel, he will create this menorah. It will take 6 years to create it, and its story is really amazing. First, we can see the size itself. It is 4.5 meters tall, weighs 4 tons. And it was placed in an extremely symbolic location. But if we talk about its shape, it is different in many ways from the original menorah. For example, it is in bronze and not in gold. Why? Because there is a Jewish prohibition on replicating the utensils of the Jerusalem temple outside of it. If you go to the homes of Jews all over the world to this day, you will not see any Jewish family lighting the menorah, the 7-branched candelabrum. Why? Because it is exclusive to the temple. We can have the menorah as a memento, but we don't use it. And usually it will be different from the original. That's why here we see that the material is different, the shape is a bit different, and also on top there is no space to put oil. This was a request precisely from the rabbinate of Israel, that there be no space to put oil, so that no one would want to light it in the future. Because the menorah will only be lit again inside the Temple of Jerusalem. But why does the menorah have 7 branches? God orders the menorah to have 7 branches when Moses was on Mount Sinai, but why exactly the number 7? And the answer is, no one is sure. Only God will really know, but there are many theories. One theory is that it represents the 7 days of the week, or rather, the 7th day of the week is the day dedicated to God. And precisely, she was in the place of divine presence. There are people who believe that it is because of the 3 patriarchs plus 4 matriarchs, in total 7. Flavius Josephus, who is a 1st century historian, he says it is because of the 7 planets of the solar system, the planets according to what they knew already at that time. So there are several theories. If you have any more of these theories, you can leave them here in the comments. But this is one of the mysteries of the menorah to this day. And let's get closer to see it with its smallest details. Here we can see 30 biblical passages represented. Beno, the artist, when he creates the menorah, it's as if it were a book telling the story of the people of Israel. And here we can see some very important passages from the Bible. We see Moses, the tablets of the law. We can see here, for example, also King David and so many other stories that mark the people of Israel. Now look at the drawings more closely and see if you recognize any other biblical story among what we see represented here. But the most important part, in my opinion, is what we see when we go down. We see here the representation of the symbols of the 12 tribes of Israel. But going down a bit more, we see a phrase in Hebrew that is written as follows. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. This is a biblical verse, a prophecy from Zechariah 4:6. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. This verse spoken by the prophet Zechariah says that Israel will not win by its physical strength, but by the Spirit of God, by the strength that God gave it. And that's exactly what's going to happen in 1948. When Israel declares its independence, Israel still didn't have an army, practically had no soldiers, weapons, had nothing. On the same day that Israel declares its independence, Israel declares the creation of the Israeli army, and on that same day, 7 enemy countries attack to destroy Israel. They had many more planes, tanks, soldiers, weapons, bullets, everything. They had a much larger quantity. Should Israel have lost this war? After all, there were 600,000 Jews living in the land of Israel and millions of Arabs in neighboring countries. And despite all this, Israel, against all odds, wins the war, not by its physical strength, but by the strength that God gave it, by the protection that God gave it. So Beno Elkan, who is the artist who created this menorah, he saw some of the most complex periods in the history of the people of Israel. He saw Nazism with his own eyes. He saw his family, his friends dying at the hands of the Nazis. And he also saw Israel winning the War of Independence. Why am I talking about this? Because of the other prophecy that is represented here? Come with me, it's the most important of all. We see here represented the prophecy of Ezekiel 37, the valley of the dry bones. The hand of the Lord came upon me, and he took me by the Spirit of the Lord and left me in the middle of a valley that was full of bones, and he made me walk around them, and I could see that they were very numerous on the surface of the valley, and they were very dry. Then he asked me, Son of man, can these bones come to life? I answered, Sovereign Lord, you know. Then he said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put spirit in you, and you will live. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I prophesied as he had commanded me. The Spirit entered them. They lived and stood up. They formed an army, a huge army. Then he told me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they live. Our bones are dry. We have lost our hope. We have been exterminated. Therefore prophesy and tell them, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I will open your graves, and I will make you come out of them, my people, and I will take you back to the land of Israel. Then tell them, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the nations where they have gone, and I will gather them from all around, and I will bring them to their own land. What is the prophecy of the valley of dry bones? The prophecy speaks of a place of death returning to life, thanks to the miracle that God grants. And many people here in Israel believe that this prophecy speaks of the recreation, the rebirth of the people of Israel after the Holocaust. In Hebrew, we call this Mishoah Letkuma, from the Holocaust to rebirth. And Beno, he witnessed this. And that's why he represents this here in the menorah. A valley of dry bones. Beneath it, we see the representation of the Holocaust. One of the greatest tragedies of the people of Israel. 6 million Jews were murdered in Europe, their bones scattered from north to south, at a time when there seemed to be no hope. That Europe was a large cemetery for the people of Israel, life begins to return. And very quickly, less than 2 years after the end of the Holocaust, the United Nations, in a vote led by the Brazilian Oswaldo Aranha, approves the creation of the State of Israel. 2,000 years, the people waiting, and just 2 years after the Holocaust, it is approved. 3 years after the end of the Holocaust, in 1948, David Ben-Gurion declares the independence of the State of Israel. Beno Ben-Gurion and that entire generation witnessed the Valley of Dry Bones, which was the Holocaust in Europe. And they also witnessed Israel not only declare its independence, but win a war that seemed impossible. And here we see represented exactly Mishoalet Kuma. So we see the valley of dry bones, the suffering of the Holocaust, the call to God, Shema Israel, and below the people rebuilding the state of Israel. This menorah, it represents not only the Temple of Jerusalem, but the rebirth of the entire people of Israel. Something that for centuries, for almost 2,000 years, seemed impossible. But that Zechariah, Ezekiel, and so many others had already predicted the return of the nations to their land, as we can also see in these verses. This menorah represents the rebirth of Israel and all the prophecies that are connected to these events. And these are prophecies, folks, that have been fulfilled in the last 100 years. How can we connect stories that are drawn here from 3,000-4,000 years ago with the events of today? And that's why it's so beautiful and symbolic that this menorah is exactly in front of the Israeli parliament. And when the state of Israel is born, a commemorative coin is also made in addition to the menorah. This coin is called Judea Liberta. Judea has been liberated. If the Romans did everything to end and erase the people of Israel from the map, the people of Israel will suffer a lot for a long time in the diaspora outside of Israel. But the people manage to return against all odds. They come back, win the wars, and become a large and strong state, which is an example to the world in so many things. And if the Romans tried to capture and destroy Judea and Israel, Judea came back, Judea was liberated, and we are here to tell this story, while the Romans, they are indeed in the history books. Rome and the Roman Empire have disappeared. The city exists, but it doesn't speak the same language, doesn't have the same culture, doesn't have the same religion, the same gods. Rome, as it was in the year 70, in the year 81, when they built the Arch of Titus, has disappeared. The arch is there to tell our story, but we are back here. The people of Israel for 2,000 years had faith in God and in the prophecies that really came true. And that's why it's so wonderful to be here telling and sharing a little bit of Israel here in Israel with Aline. If you want to know more about Israel, you are invited to follow here on the channel. But that was all for today, folks. A big kiss and see you next time.